And we're back. Last time on the cast, we played the intro Quickstart module for Shadowdark. Shadowdark is an indie role-playing game with very high production values, I must say, and really great art. Made by, okay, here we go. It's not Kelsey Grammer. Kelsey Dion.
Kelsey Grammer. But what if Kelsey Grammer did make it?
That'd be pretty fun.
That would be so crazy. That'd be so crazy.
Her brand name company thing is the Arcane Library. Lots of very slick stuff there. And I'd heard about this a while ago, and because I went to download on the recommendation of my patrons, which we don't really have patrons anymore. If you want to get into our Discord, we don't have a Patreon, but you can just ask nicely. Go
and it doesn't hurt to go to the website and donate some fiat USD dollars via PayPal button.
Or just buy these guys a coffee. Just buy them a coffee.
Or Bitcoin.
Or
whatever. What do you
buy them a full Bitcoin.
Download the Fountain app, which is really nice podcast app, and then you could use it to donate via Bitcoin if you want to.
But as I was saying,
for full Bitcoin, we'd probably come to your house and play. It's like
probably we'd fly across the country and play.
You may use this website.
John probably won't make it.
And this website has a form called Contact, and you can just like fill it out like it's 1996 and send us an email over the internet.
Let me tell you about this thing called SMTP. It's an amazing protocol. And you can send text messages.
You can be one of many people who has contacted us in that way and said, "Hey, let me into the Discord."
I'll admit, I'm really surprised at the number of people who contacted us just to be in the Discord.
I'm proud of the number of people.
It takes some effort. You got to go and do all the stuff.
Yeah,
we should open.
This is not an
type form.
We're not going to make it easy on you. You got to work.
Okay, well, let's get to the stuff that anybody cares about listening. So anyway, I was saying that one of our Discord members, our GGNO Reers, suggested that I check this out and maybe play it. And I looked into it and downloaded the Quickstart, and then I realized that it was going to replace a file I already had on my machine because I had already downloaded it like a year ago. And I hadn't looked into it much because I saw it and I said, okay, I know what this is. It's a simplified house-ruled version of 5e with influence from Basic and Basic Expert BX from the 80s. And that is exactly what it is. And at the time, I just wasn't interested in doing that. But we were wanting to do something new today. And I got to say, my overall impression is fairly positive depending on your needs and audience. So if you're going to play this, and everybody feel free to chime in, whatever. But if you're going to play this especially with kids or try to teach kids or a new player, like casuals or whatever, trying to teach them how to get into D&D, this is a great way to do it because once they learn this, they could really easily transition, especially to 5e, but to any kind of D&D, because basically it's you know exactly what you're gonna get. It's very well laid out, extremely clear, very attractively presented, simplified 5e rules with old school influence.
Yeah, I'm pleasantly surprised. So, did you guys read any of the Quick Start rules?
No.
A little bit of it. Skimmed it.
Skimmed it. Yeah. So I read pretty much all the Quick Start rules. Some of it, pretty fast, I guess. Not very deeply. But my impression, when we compare it to other things that we've ran a lot of different things over the years. It is very cleanly put together, and there's not a lot of wasted words, wasted paragraphs, not a lot of. I guess we've read some things that had just weird flourishes for no good reason in the text. Well,
I know what you were thinking.
Yes, exactly. So there's a few of those. There's been a couple of those, but even recently, it's been just kind of wild. But I think it's really simple. I don't know. I think it's kind of to the heart of what D&D should be, mostly. You shouldn't have all these rules that have reference constantly. Always getting in the way of what's actually going on in the game, the narrative. I don't want people using bags of rats and cleaving them. I was joking there. I've never had the Goliath character did that, but cleaving them infinitely to move infinitely across the room and do damage to everybody. I think that's silly. But what's cool about the rules too, it leaves a lot to the GM discretion and to the imagination of the players. It's imagination of the players. It's not so nitpicky. It's way less nitpicky than the 5e rules. There are keywords and there's some concepts there, But a lot of it is just to kind of your discretion. Like it came up, I think, a few times in this episode where it's like, oh, it doesn't really say, but I think it makes sense that this would happen. And we're all like, yeah,
Yeah, and just to remind the listener, this is not a review of the whole game. This is just a quick start. I assume it'll be mostly representative, but there may be like additional systems that are not covered in the quick start. Like, for example, we talked about surprise. In basic D&D, there's a very, and then advanced also, but there's a very specific procedure for that you do every time there's a fight. Everybody rolls a d6 per side. If it's a 1 or a 2, you're surprised, and there's some modifiers on that. But in this one, it just says the DM determines if one side is surprised, and you just do it however you want. So I did it by making a wisdom check against the wisdom score of the other creature. So whatever, it's fine. So that is our overall impression, I think, is positive. Would I run this again? Yeah, sure. Would I run it instead of 5e as a campaign? I don't know. It depends on who you're running it for. Like, because I know a lot of people like the extra crunchiness that 5e has, and for me, it's like no big deal to run 5e. I can just do it in my sleep because I've done it for so long. So the additional crunchiness doesn't bother me really at all. Although there are some elements that I like better than 5e and better than BX, which I'll talk about later. But I just wanted first to give overall impressions in case that's all you care about, and then we'll get into the weeds. So any other overall impressions before we get into details? Mm-mm. Okay. I think everybody liked it.
Were your characters easy to understand?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Piece of cake.
Yeah, and I never really played magic users. And even though I got killed pretty quickly, it was easy to figure that out, I thought.
Oh, yeah. We had a 60% death rate.
It's good.
Yeah.
But, like, let's see. You played NGR. You played D&D 5e. Like, what else? Did you play Into the Odd? I don't remember.
No,
he didn't.
We played a couple of like AD&D modules.
AD&D.
Oh, yeah, we played AD&D.
That's right.
Yeah.
Where
We
I
did some
think
of
we
that.
played it according to that rules, and that's about it.
Yeah.
I've played Pathfinder a little bit in the past, but that's about
Yeah,
it.
I mean, the character sheets are, I think, again, really clean.
Yeah,
and
yeah, I
it's
like
not
that.
like super distracting with a lot of different stuff on it. Like,
And
some
I'll say, now I've looked at a ton of games like this. Like you can throw a rock on Drive-Thru RPG and hit a lot of games like this. However, I will say I can't think of anyone that's better than this. So if you want a game that's in this little niche, this is probably the one I would go with. There's lots, so pick what you like. But this one is I think this is the most natural transition to and from 5e. So if that's what you want to go for, then that's what this is suited for.
I do really like the idea of how the spells work.
See, that's one thing I don't like. So I guess we'll transition.
I'm not a fan of that either.
I guess we'll transition to talking about details. We're going to talk about some stuff that we do like more than, comparable systems, and some that we don't. So let's start with talking about how spells work. In normal D&D, back from ages past, and even till today, you have spell slots. So you can cast 3 spells of level 1, 2 of level 2, and you just cast them. It works, and you mark off the box, and that's how they work. There are some exceptions, but generally that's the plan. With this one, there are no spell slots, which is kind of nice in that you don't have to remember stuff and note it on a character sheet. So it's one less thing for a newbie to keep track of in his head. So that's, again, I think that's probably the reason it's done this way. But what were you going to say about it? You said that you liked it, right?
Yeah, I just like it. It's just simpler.
Yeah. So the idea is you roll your spellcasting ability modifier, which intelligence for wizards, wisdom for clerics, priests, whatever they're called. And if it fails, then that's like running out of your spell. You can't cast that spell until you rest. If it succeeds, you do it, and you can try it again later.
So that's the one thing I don't like.
I don't like it either.
If you to me, if I was to make one little change to it, if you miss or don't succeed, you just miss. That's it. You don't lose the ability to use that spell for the rest of the day. You just miss.
Yeah.
But maybe you could lose a spell slot and you have so many.
Well, if we're trying to stay away from slots.
Yeah.
See, the reason I like that is it's like, especially if you're like this neophyte wizard who isn't really sure like who they are and what they're doing, then if you go to cast some spell and it like fails miserably, maybe you're like, you know what, I'm staying away from that one. Like,
If
it-
you
it
roll a
kinda
nat
makes
one,
sense
I
to
can
me.
agree.
But the
with
thing
you,
is, there's nothing. It's just purely random.
No,
See,
I
that's
know,
what I don't
that's-
like
it
about
is random.
Okay, the upside is you get to cast a lot of spells.
Yes.
Like
Right.
with the magic missile, for instance. Statistically, you'll do pretty well with that in the long run.
Yeah.
Like you'll do pretty well.
Yeah.
And then you can have backup spells you can cast. Like Burning Hands or whatever. And that maybe that is appealing to a magic user. I play a lot of magic users, and it is great to cast a lot of magic. But yeah, like suddenly the cure wounds not working.
Yeah.
Felt terrible.
So what if you have some spells, like 2 or 3 spells or one spell that you can choose that you won't forget or won't be able to use if you fail, so like a cantrip type of thing. But then the rest of your spells, if you mess up on those, you can't use it again to the next long rest.
Introducing cantrips.
That's basically
Basically.
how that developed
Yeah.
in advanced D&D.
I'm just thinking like every roll felt more weighty,
Yeah, and that's the thing that's good
Meaningful.
about
So
it.
it felt
which,
good
which
to you,
made
yeah.
it more exciting to me.
When
And-
you came in at the start, you're like, I just want to use light. I was like, wait
Right,
a
right,
second. Don't fill it light right away. Hold up.
And it does produce effects in the game that are fun, like him suddenly not being able to cast Cure after he'd already moved over to cast Cure.
Oh, it's
Right,
terrible.
right.
And now that produces an interesting complication to the gameplay. Now,
His god left him, and he died.
Now, the
like
thing
a
I don't
dog
like
in
about
the
it-
dirt.
is that I can't make sense of it within the fiction of the world. And then it's even worse for clerics because the implication is when they miss, and if they get a crit miss, they have to then atone. But it's like, well, what did your god get mad at you for? You're just in here and you're passing spells all day, and then suddenly God gets mad at you for some reason.
Lack of faith.
It doesn't really seem to make sense.
Dirty
physically.
thoughts.
Think like 6 seconds ago, I cast this exact same spell and it worked just fine. And now 6 seconds later, I committed a mortal sin. What's going on here? Explain this to me. So I don't like that. I think it fictionally doesn't make sense.
I
And
agree.
I wouldn't like to have to always come up with some, because it would bother me. Like if I'm playing a cleric, I'm like, well, what was it in second condominiums 4258732 that I forgot about or something? What's going on here?
Well, I think anytime you mess with the spiritual realm or the magical realm, the arcane realm, you are, what do you say? You're skating on thin ice. You're always trying your luck, and I think that luck running out is good.
But see, I don't even like it for arcane stuff. I like the idea that you've studied the spell, you know it, you can cast it. Now, I can see you having this situation if you're like really rushed for time or you're doing it in a weird way that you're not used to. I could see that.
Yeah, that
But-
would be represented
Well,
by
see,
that one.
so I know, Daniel, you don't like Terry Pratchett.
No, I hate him.
But I like Terry Pratchett, and the way that like wizards function in Terry Pratchett is like most of the time they're not quite sure exactly what they're actually doing, and there's a like risk associated with it.
They just keep
Chaos
doing
magic.
things.
Because actually, when you're in the real world, like as a professional, it can feel like that a lot of times.
every day.
Yeah, you feel like
Every day.
You're like, oh, what am I even doing here?
They're just- the
and then
wizard-
it works out mostly. Yeah.
The wizards are just barely treading water and coming
Right.
up with new, like super complicated.
And I feel like these spiritual high flyers could potentially be the same way. Like they're really sticking themselves out there in this service, and what can I say? They're skating on thin ice too. Maybe they don't really understand what they're messing with.
But I
what they're
like
dealing
the
with.
idea too, to some extent, of like the priestly class, because most of their magic or whatever is like healing. It's not like
Actually, only 1/6 of the spells are healing spells.
most of that which
They're level
was
1.
concerned with us tonight. Anyway, like I don't know.
Well, I mean, you can ask
'Cause, like,
too much of your deity, right? To like make it so focused on, oh, I need your help, I need your help, I need your help.
Well, like the
Right.
lay on hands pool that
Uh-huh.
paladins have.
Maybe
in
God gets tired of
5e
it. That's all I'm
is-
saying.
Yeah.
But so there are definitely magic systems I like better. I'll say, like, again, as a magic user, I think it's great to cast a lot of spells. So, like, you being able to do the magic missile over and over and over again. So, one interesting change may be to offer more opportunity for a magic user to cast with advantage or to have other bonuses. I'm not really sure, but casting with advantage more often would be just super. And that puts you at, like, less than a 25% failure rate. It'll be. I
wonder if in the
15,
like full rules is there some kind of like
18%.
mastery system or something like that, where you can get better at casting certain spells. I don't know.
In hindsight, I
That
should have
would make
stayed
sense.
at range and just done magic missile over and over again. But I was
Like,
trying
if
to
you're-
maximize damage.
Yeah,
and
if you're under
kinda
no
rolled that.
duress, you can use your entire turn, including your movement or something,
Right.
to give advantage. Okay, but if you're in melee or you're also moving, then maybe you don't have advantage. Like it'd be a pretty quick little change to do that.
All right.
Just throwing it out there.
So I think we liked and didn't like some things about the magic system, but it's a good one. Like, it's perfectly functional and produces fun in-game effects. So I don't hate it, but I
But
would
you know
not
what we
use it.
loved?
What?
We loved NGR's system. I mean, come on, that was so much
You
fun.
roll in that, but I don't remember the details.
It's just
That's
it's just amazing.
neoclassical
Just
geek
revival. yeah.
revival.
You got to
yeah.
roll under.
Wait. Oh my gosh.
But let's not. Okay.
Wait, that's off topic.
Off-
I'm just
off
saying
topic.
the kind of effects that you can have and how you can scale them. So you can, so
Yeah.
you know a spell and you can scale it as big as you can stand, and you can
Oh,
kill
yeah.
your character.
Oh, because you
casting
take
the
stress and
spell.
stuff. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, which I think is wonderful. I think that I don't know. I think it models fictionally what that would
Yeah.
be like. Maybe
You can.
I guess.
Yeah. It goes directly against what this game is trying to do. Like,
exact
simplify and
opposite.
streamline. Yeah. Totally
Yeah.
opposite. But we like it for another reason. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So let's talk more about what happened in the death realm. I actually preferred this way of doing death and dying than 5e. I thought it was really cool. So the way it works is when you go down to 0, you're down. And then you roll a d4, you have that many rounds left, plus your con mod. So I want to talk both about that and the plus con mod thing. Another change that this makes, and we can talk about this separately if we want, is that when monsters or you roll for your hit points, you only ever add your con mod once. So you roll it once at first level, add your con mod, and you will never add it to your hit dice again. When you level up, you don't add your con mod. And same thing with monsters. If they have 4 HD, they only add their con mod once. That tends to limit how, like, HP bloat, which is mirrored in the combat system because damage rolls don't have ability scores added to them. So when you roll your damage with your great axe, you don't add your strength to it. So that limits how much damage people have, or rather can take, and how much they deal out, which I think is nice, and it's one less thing for people to remember. Like, you're always telling new players to D&D, oh, remember to add your strength mod to that, remember to add your dex mod to that, and you just don't have to. So it's simple. I like it. But the effect of that is your con still is important beyond that first roll, HD roll. It's because it extends how long you have to live or reduces it. So it's like a big thing. Like, Mike, well, normally you randomly generate it, but if you were to select your ability scores, you would have to think, like, every point I get in con is another round. I know I'm going to get to possibly live. And I
if
like
the con score is negative,
yeah, it goes down.
it goes down. I mean, you have a minimum of 1 round, but that's a mess.
Yeah, it is a
That's
mess. And I liked, so with 5e, you have at most 6 rounds. And this one you could have more than that. But I like the countdown. Like, you just know it's counting down. There's not 3 strikes and you're out, or else you stabilize. It's just, this is harsher, actually, because I think the chances are against you a lot more. You have to roll that d20 on your death save to pop back up, or someone has to help you, because otherwise you're out of luck.
That's it.
And you're probably realistically going to be out in 3 or 4 tries. That's probably how many people will tend to have, and that's how many we tended to have. So that's a good amount, because that gives you a chance for the other players to, like, just have to make a hard decision, like, do I continue fighting or make a break to try to heal you first? So
It's a hard decision
Yeah.
to make in game because I was like, I mean, I
Like,
could,
you might have dropped the Minotaur.
I could
Then
have
saved his life.
potentially killed the Minotaur in 1 hit if I got 6 damage with my crossbow. I could have hidden and guaranteed I lived another turn for something sketchy. Or I could have tried to save Stefano, and I was like, I mean, if I don't do this now, he's gone forever. So I gave it a shot, but didn't work out.
yeah.
What happens if you like if someone had killed the Minotaur and several of us were still rolling to survive? Would they be able to, like, stay, like, just stabilize
I mean,
us? or
they
would
have
it
to
still
make the
be
check, just like
Okay.
No, like let's say I kill the Minotaur on my turn, and he has one roll remaining.
the state of the Minotaur is irrelevant.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's just like it's not like combat's over, so everybody's up. It's just
I've been
No,
playing
not-
I've been playing too many video games. It's got me confused.
Not that, but like,
That's what I
how
was
long
wondering.
would he have to lay there? Like, you don't count turns outside of combat, do you?
oh, it's rounds.
Rounds?
Yeah, so if it's 6 seconds, I mean that's about it. But you because of that always on initiative thing, I would just keep going in round order until everybody was dead or not. So speaking of monsters, I'll transition to talk about that unless anybody had anything else to add. But this is the bestiary, or this is several things that I cut out from the bestiary and just photoshopped in. So I'd have all the monsters in the module on one sheet. You see how short the write-ups are?
It's beautiful.
They are like 1 or 2 sentences plus the very abbreviated stat list, like AC, HP, attack, move, the ability scores, alignment level. And then if there's any special abilities, it's very tersely written right below that. So you can fit a ton of monsters on the one reference sheet, which I think a monster reference sheet like this should always be included in a module. So that would be a recommendation for updating the quick start. Just get every creature that's in the module, put it on one sheet, then you can just have it. And I also use this to track initiative and HP and all that stuff.
Oh yeah,
Very useful.
very.
Speaking of the module, I thought the module was good. I didn't particularly think the flavor text was that great, and there are some things that I would have done better. Like I didn't even realize there was an exterior, like those big long hallways, because it doesn't really describe it much. I just had to intuit that it was there. So that would be useful to have, but it's really good as far as the access. This is obviously a Dyson Logos map, and there are 4 entrances to the dungeon. You could climb over the top and go down into the courtyard where the Minotaur is.
I told you.
Yep.
I said over the top.
And then there's 3 other entrances, the main entrance and then 2 to the side that you guys found. So that's great. There's plenty of ways to go in. Down here, there's spider guys, there's beastmen and other parts of it. So you could have a different experience, like each time you go in, if you're going and leaving multiple times to rest and that kind of thing. And if you were to play this multiple times with other parties, it would look different. I read through the whole module. It seemed pretty nice. There was some good interactivity. There's some repeated themes, motifs, and interactables that you can learn to use. And in fact, that room 17, the long room with the bull that had pinned the guy against the wall, that's teaching you a feature of the dungeon. Spoiler alert, if you're going to... Well, I'm not going to say anything about it. That's teaching you a feature of the dungeon. I'll just say that. It's worth getting the quick start, I think, just for the module. It's nice, it's flavorful, and I like it. And it has a nice climax, or at least it did for us, because we got to the boss immediately.
Wait, that was like the big bad?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
It shows locked doors and blocked, like barricaded doors on the map really clearly with this opaque triangle with L or B for locked or blocked. I had never seen that before. It's good. I really like it. And all the monster groups are marked and labeled on the map. Thank you. So many things don't do that. Recommendation
that's really
also, show on the map if a room has magic in it, because people are going to cast detect magic and walk around.
You know they're going to do that.
So I always do that on the
No, they
key
gotta do
and
that.
on the map. That's just, I always say that about every module that I run. So, great. Module's great. Worth downloading the quick start just for that. Other things that I noticed is that when I taught my daughter how to create a character in it today. So she made a priest, I think, because she rolled high wisdom. And it's so clearly and easily laid out. It's like one spread, or sometimes even one page. And that includes everything you need to level up. Also, I kind of like the leveling up method.
Oh, yeah, I'm very happy with that.
The way it works is when you level up, you roll an HD like normal, add your HP. Then you have a random table of different level up benefits you can get. And you could get the same one multiple times or different ones. And so you're never exactly sure how you're going to level up. And so part of me doesn't like that, but then part of me, because why do you get one rather than the other? There's no logical reason in the fiction, so that bothers me. But the part that I like is when you level up in-game, like in the real world, with a bunch of dudes and you're eating pizza, you just want to roll 2d6 and let's keep going. Because otherwise you got to break for an hour for everyone to consult D&D Beyond and pick like 18 things. So I like the simplicity of it. That's for sure. What about the classes? I mean, I think it, in a very brief, in a brief span, it encapsulates all the classic tropes. Like your cleric can turn undead. He has the holy weapons. All the clerics can use edged weapons in this. They can start with long swords and stuff. You got the backstab.
Like why not just take that out? Wait, just say they can't use edged weapons, right?
Well, I actually like when clerics can use edged weapons. That's just a personal thing, though.
It's terrible.
I don't see why it doesn't make sense. I like it. Yeah,
that's
use
just
edged weapons.
the old
Historical
way.
Historical.
It's actually not historical.
It's tradition.
You gotta save your blade
Tradition
for the sword of truth.
There you go. Oh, I want to
That's
talk
right.
about
It's
one
not
thing.
that you can't use edged weapons. You're just waiting for the right one.
Two things that I hated,
But
but one thing that I love in between, like a little hate sandwich.
oh, maybe you
Okay.
should think of two more things you love and make it
Then
like
make a bigger
Big
sandwich.
Mac.
Yeah. Okay, I'll start with one thing that I hate.
I love Big Mac.
That is, why don't you just say everything in feet? Don't tell me close, near, far, all that stuff, because you end up having to convert it to feet anyway. Because, I move near, okay, then I move near again. Are you going to keep track of how many nears away you are? Isn't it just easier to say I'm 45 feet away?
We already settled this, an infinite number of nears.
I think there's a problem with saying 45 feet because I don't know if people really understand 45 feet.
I definitely don't.
But you understand near, like you're close enough to move to something that turn.
Well,
I guess.
I guess it's less about understanding 45 feet and knowing that if you're 5 feet, you can hit them.
Yeah, I mean, that's
so if
really
you're
all
45
you care
feet,
about.
you know
like,
you need to move a full 30 feet. It's just numbers at that point.
Yeah, and if you're far, I mean, you can't possibly get to them and whack them with a sword.
I mean,
Yeah.
it takes fewer characters to write 30 apostrophe than it does to write near.
And to be fair, it did actually say that in the manual. It said approximately 30 feet.
Yeah, and it tells you the equivalence because
Yeah.
you actually need that.
It doesn't give an equivalence of far. It's just further than 30 feet.
It's sight. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's line of sight. And that also bothers me, like, for, like, shooting bows. Like, I want to know if it can go 300 feet or not. But I know you can just say it does. Anyway, that's just a pet peeve of
But
mine.
how often does it really come up? I guess it maybe it's kind of nitpicky, the far thing.
The
near thing,
I
I'm
am
totally fine
nitpicking
with.
a little bit, okay? I'm nitpicking.
Like I think again, I think they trust the GM and they trust the players to figure it out and agree to it.
And in a
like,
dungeon,
that we're on
it
the same
doesn't
page.
ever really come up.
Was that
'Cause
just
No.
one half of the hate sandwich?
That was one half of the
Or
hate
one
sandwich.
third,
Okay,
I
but what's
guess.
the like in the middle?
The love baloney in the middle
Uh-huh.
is nobody has dark vision. It's just like how I run things all the time. Everything is dark, and
Is there a
you have
spell
have
to
a
do
light.
dark vision?
It's called light.
I'm gonna look under the D's here.
Okay.
I didn't look that carefully at the spells.
They use
I
the
just
term
quickly read over
dark
them.
adapted. So all monsters are dark adapted, so they can see in the dark. So I love that. That's how I run it all the time. So points for that. The other half of my hate sandwich, though, is oh my goodness, treasure and XP. Listen, just tell me how many gold pieces it is for XP. I don't want to be like looking at this dagger and saying, is it cool enough to count as 1 XP? I want to know 50 gold is 1 XP.
So you're saying that's hard for you to do?
Yeah, it's unnecessarily complicated. So here's the normal process. I add numbers together and I compare it to a value. Easy. This one I gotta like do quantitative analysis here.
But if I were writing a module and had to think about
Qualitative.
every cool dagger, that would be taxing on me.
Well, you don't have to think of every cool dagger. Like
You want to do quantitative analysis or qualitative
She
analysis?
gives the treasure value of everything anyway. You
Okay.
have to give the treasure value
because
it's worth stuff if you sell it.
So you want it to ultimately come back to the total amount of GP.
Yes, because
Yes.
it does anyway.
Because-
It's just like it's like simplifying, but actually making it more complicated by simplifying it.
Interesting.
Why not just say you find gold pieces instead of a dagger?
I can. It just
can
comes
do that
back to trusting the players, not be nitpicky little weirdos, and be like, I think it's actually worth 50 gold, and
Well,
you say, no, it's worth 40
Well,
gold, so it's not.
you
an
know,
XP.
that statement
They
right
say,
there.
Well, it's definitely 50. I'm sure it should be 50. I mean, it says in the manual it's 50. And you're like, no, this one's worth 40, and they're like, no, it's 50. I get an XP.
To your point, that works in any D&D though. It doesn't
Yes,
matter which
that
one you
is so
do.
D&D.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But anyway,
it could be any.
I don't want to have to be making judgments if this counts as a bag of gold. I want to know
I saw that you struggled with that.
60 gold.
You seem very, very
Like, just
very
make
upset.
50
It's like-
gold is 1 XP. Just say that.
I'm like, how about it's a little bag? And you're like, no, it's not a big enough bag. I'm like, is this too big of a bag? Is this 2 bags? If it's, if it takes a, truck to move, and it's just 1 big bag, how many bags is that?
Wasn't one of our bags of gold like 3 pieces?
You mean our bags of gold?
It was like no, it was a bag of centipedes.
Earlier when we
no,
were
you
all
guys
still
are dead.
alive.
You don't own anything. Sorry,
No,
guys.
When
Oh,
we
okay.
were still alive.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
true.
something like that.
Okay, I had another thing. This is actually a good thing. So this is also going on the sandwich. This is going the outside the hate sandwich. Now we've got a love bottom open face sandwich.
Oh, you're adding a love bottom.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And that is using initiative not in combat. Because the problem, maybe it's just you guys are dysfunctional. The problem is it's not actually. It's just human psychology. If you ask a group of people, what do you as a group do? It's going to be crickets or arguing or bickering. If I just say, what do you do, and point at a particular person, you're more likely to get traction and keep things moving along. So I like actually for that to be the default. And then when everybody understands that we need to take a joint action like moving down a hallway, then we can do that. And then just start over saying, what do you do? Now, many indie games, even like Apocalypse World or whatever, going back that far, Golden Oldie, recommend similar things, always just looking at one person and saying, what do you do? Not what does everybody do? So I really like that. I like that is the default. That will be my default going forward in anything.
I like you.
Yeah. The other thing we can talk about is real-time dungeon timekeeping. Not really a fan because I think it's another simplification that makes things more complicated.
Oh, I thought it was great when the torches went out in the middle of combat. Like, that would have never happened normally.
That's not true. It would have happened.
I don't think that's ever happened.
Well, it's just because.
Because you don't normally count turns in combat because their combat's normally not that long.
Yeah, but
That's what I mean.
it could have happened, but I think you're more likely to be surprised by it.
It
with
literally, and then you're like, oh, it's a courtyard. I was like, oh my god, thank you.
Yeah,
I was like, oh no, I am certainly screwed. I'm gonna have to like sneak my way out of here, like film my way out of here, and like light a torch. That's what I was thinking when that happened.
I know.
But when your alarm went off in the middle of combat, I was like, oh no.
Yeah, it would have been
It was
amazing
really
if
good.
it went pitch black in there.
No, I mean, I'm just saying that was a really good moment that would not be possible if we just did turns, which normally we take off out of combat.
I think it would be possible, but it is less likely because everybody. When I'm saying decrement your torches, I think people are more aware, and when they're on like 1 or 2, they'll light a new one rather than just forgetting about it.
When I play normally with torches, I care about torches. And I know people are out there thinking about how to make torches cool again, or cool in general.
Make your torches cool again.
But-
Make torches great again.
Yeah.
So I want torches to be cool, but my experience with torches so far has been there's a die that ticks down, it will never run out.
Well, that's because you're making sure it doesn't run out. So, another thing is torches.
I love it randomly going out. Come on, you gotta give some love to that.
I enjoyed it.
Because it felt like we weren't even thinking about torches going into combat with
What
the
if it
Minotaur.
was random? What if it was like arranged between? I know this
There
is
are games that do that.
complicated. So like between 30 minutes and an hour, and you just don't know.
There are games that do stuff like that where you roll a die, and if the die comes up on a bad number, the torch goes out or has gone out. So that's another simplification that people do.
I thought it was lovely.
The interesting thing is about one-to-one timekeeping or real-time timekeeping is some people were bothered, I read, and thinking that wasn't realistic, but we found in our experience that time in the game actually tracks time playing the game almost exactly. Like after playing for 2 hours, I look down and it's been about 2 hours in real dungeon time as well. So that part doesn't bother me at all because it tends to even out very accurately. But what bothered me is I have to keep track of turns anyway for torches. For random encounters, for wandering monsters. So I'm already keeping track here. So having to keep track of real time as well is just one other thing I have to keep track of when I'm already keeping track here. And I can easily see how much time has passed. It's not a big deal.
I felt like we needed to move more quickly and discuss things more quickly, though, too.
Yeah, that is true.
I'm happy. I am pro real-time torches. I think it sounds fine. And if there's a way to keep you from doing turns, that'd be great.
I don't hate it.
I'm not sure.
I don't know that it's my favorite, but there are ways that you don't have to keep track of turns. You can just, when you get into a new room or every other room, you can check for wandering encounters. So basically, the rate at which you enter rooms is roughly equivalent to how long you'd have to wait between checks anyway. So
Boy, this is a pretty deep dive here on these rules. This
yeah,
is
we're
good stuff.
going deep.
It makes you feel like you have to stay on task, kind of.
I think, and I wanted to have a giant hourglass
teachers. Yeah.
right here and have it going, but they didn't have any that were an hour
Yeah,
long.
like I
at
think we
Walmart.
would realize that the timer was running out. In other words, our torches are getting less bright, and we would relight the torches. But if you're fighting a Minotaur, I don't know, maybe it doesn't come up. You know,
Yeah, you got other things to worry about.
like I said, that was terrible. That was a terrible moment that would normally not have happened. So I thought it was great.
No. Let's see. Are there any other things that we want to talk about? It does basically everything. Like encounter distance, you just roll a d6 to see how far. But again, you can just do the normal way, which is I think 2d4 times 10 for feet, that kind of thing. The monsters, they're written well, like I said. They've got... we didn't get into everything. They have all the basic stuff, like hazards, traps, yada yada. Our patrons, not our patrons, our GG No Readers in the Discord, were saying that the math was very flat, and that's true, even flatter than 5e. So your bonuses are not going to go crazy. +3 is the highest magical bonus, at least in the book that I saw. Maybe they have more later, but because of the way that stats work and there's no proficiency bonus, the math is going to stay very tightly bounded. So even if you're like a level 9 dude, you're not going to be rolling like +28 or something like that. It's going to be more within the
+28, that's great.
more within the human expectations. So if that's what you like, you will get it. There's reaction rolls, of course, activities that people are doing when they're encountered randomly, list of names. Oh, I didn't have to roll reactions because the Minotaur always just attacks. There's a lore reason that I don't want to get into, but that it's explained in the module. So there's a...
It has to do with his horns being like not really bull horns, doesn't
No,
it?
it doesn't.
He's sensitive about it.
He's real sensitive about it.
Doesn't have anything to do with
They're,
that at all.
you know, maybe a goatee or maybe, what was it?
Yak-like.
Yak-like?
It's definitely yak-like.
What's an elk? Does an elk do the...
No,
No, they're like...
No, their horns are different, yeah.
Oh, okay. Or maybe I'm thinking of a moose.
Maybe.
They kind of blur together in my mind.
Was it worth for me... This is not relevant to the module or to the system. Was it worth it for me to give you little cutouts of the rooms, or did we care about that at all?
Should
I
I like
It
bother?
led
actually.
to some degree of confusion because...
Well, I liked seeing the rooms, though.
These
you know,
two rooms,
like kind of seeing our map versus what we made, like just I said briefly, he just held the map up for a second. It looked like it made more sense than what we actually put together. But I don't know, maybe we kind of rushed through it too fast. I'm not really sure.
the cutouts of these two individual rooms, the bowl room and then the Minotaur arena,
Oh yeah,
those helped me.
Yeah, I could see that. For complicated rooms, I typically do a sketch anyway.
yeah, and I think that's what we usually do, like DMing, like if it's kind of hard to say anyways, you just kind of draw it on the mini Mac, or
Yep.
maybe a full size Mac.
There is
That's old school
a
GG no re, sorry.
Shadowdark character generator. If you're interested, at shadowdarklings.net. I guess that's their website. And yeah, so our patrons are, GG No Readers are fairly positive on it, and I can see why. I don't think I have anything more to say, at least about the quick start. I think we've plumbed the depths here. Good job. Check it out. And if you want us to play this again or play another module, let us know on the Discord. And to get in the Discord, go to ggnorecast.com/contact and shoot us an email from 2004 style.
Donate.
Oh yeah, and I guess we need money for
Put a
stuff.
note.
I
Put a
don't know.
note.
You know,
Donate.
maybe we should replace these really
It does catch our eye.
these janky microphones that we got
they're
from
they're
some
doing this. Listen,
pawn shop.
like we catch a lot of that.
Yeah, there we go.
Hear that? Mine just goes boom.
Yeah, see, all this could be over. We're all gonna have like $400 like Rode microphones after the GGNO readers is done.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, we
appreciate
need
that.
6 of them, no problem.
I have like 8 producers sitting over there in the corner.
That's right. We get our
We need
4K
like a
stream.
real-time fact checker.
Yeah, we get a real Evan to come fact check.
Well,
for
I
us.
think we're at the point where we
Why do
could
we
get an
need a
intern.
fact checker?
If,
We're like pretty much always right about stuff.
just someone to confirm that we're right.
Oh, right,
is a good feeling. It's more
You know what?
about our ego.
You're right about that.
Thank you. Boy, I just feel oof. I'm like an inch taller, an inch bigger.
You know, I wasn't really that sad about my character dying until you pointed out that we didn't get any XP.
I thought it was
or-
hilarious when you're like, oh,
Now
our
I'm-
treasure. I'm like,
Now I leave.
I'm like,
sad.
what are you saying? That's my treasure. son.
Now I leave sad.
Oh yeah, so for
Your room temperature, buddy.
For
What
the
are you
three-
talking about?
the 3 that died, it was their first time to die in any of our campaigns. Like that they've been playing with us the
You
whole
guys are
time.
beautiful. I really appreciate you guys.
To be perfectly honest with you, it's my first time dying in any D&D
Wow,
campaign.
there you go.
So I don't die anymore because I've died so many times before.
Yeah,
if you look at this
We have a
beautiful
graveyard.
graveyard over
It's
here.
a cork board on the wall with a bunch of character sheets tacked to it that are all of our deceased guys. We have a deceased stamp that we stamp on each character sheet and add it to the board. So we've got 3 new victims to add to the board, and we'll have a picture of the updated board on our show notes. That's ggnorecast.com. Please enjoy if you can. Bye-bye.